Hello, in this short video, we're going to look at our beam analysis with load combination calculator. So I'm going to go and create this now. I'm going to scroll down to the analysis section, and you can see we've got our beam analysis with load combinations ASD and LRFD. These are actually both the same behind the scenes. They just use different load combinations. In this case, we're going to use ASD, but this would all be the same with the LRFD calculator. So when I click on here, you'll see we've got quite a few different presets. These are all the same calculator behind the scene. They just have kind of different loads or different span lengths, things like that to represent their specific conditions. In this case, we're just going to stick with a generic beam. So I'm going to go and create this. And if you've used our free beam calculator that's available online, you'll see that this is very similar to that. There are, however, quite a few differences that make this a lot more powerful, I think. The first one you'll see here is the section properties. If you see, we've got our section label. We can enter our bending stiffness. So right now we've got 29 million psi times, so E times I, and the same with our axial stiffness. Now the axial stiffness doesn't actually do much because we're looking at a beam, so you don't necessarily need to worry too much about that. But where it gets really interesting is this link button. So if we click on this, you'll see now that I've created a custom cross section. So if I look at it, I've got double channels here. I can select it, and all of a sudden I've now linked my custom cross section to my analysis calculator. So now I'll be able to check the deflections for that calculator, for that custom cross section. So going down now, I've got my total beam length. So obviously this is the total length of our beam, including all of the spans. So if I've got multiple spans, I want the sum of all the span lengths. I can also change the incline to be a simple slope. So if I have a rafter design, or if I have a hip corner slope, so basically if I have a valley or something like that, I can also set that here. In this case, we're just going to stick to the horizontal. I can also move my support. So say if I had a fixed support, I could add this here. I can also add hinges. So say if I have a hinge at, I'm just going to make this up, at 3L over 4, so at 3/4 of the length, I could come here and add a hinge here. And as you can see now, we've got this. We can see our bending moment diagram, and that's for this. If I say moved it to just L over 4, this really has a drastic impact because there's no moment through the hinge, right? So carrying on, I can enter loads in a myriad of ways here. So I can enter it in distributed loads in PSF. So I'll enter the start location, end location, the tributary width at the start and at the end. The different tributary widths would be, for instance, if I have a triangular framing or floor, I could say have 5 at one end and 2 at the other end, and then I'd have my trapezoidal load. And as I mentioned, I can also enter my load magnitudes in PSF. So here I've got 20 and 40. I can also enter line loads. So again, these have start and end locations. So these you can see on the diagram. So if I start at say 3 feet and end at 5 feet, and I add a load magnitude, I can also have trapezoidal loads. So I can have say 100 PLF at one end and 200 PLF at the other end. By default, if you see, it'll just match to the so that it's the same load. But if I want to override that, I can type in 200, and I've got my trapezoidal load now. I can also enter point loads. So if I just do this, and in that case, all I have to do is enter the load in pounds, or I can also enter moment loads in pound feet. Carrying on, if I have specific conditions for my live load, I may be able to reduce this to less than the design combination when it's used in conjunction with other loads. So for instance, if I open the load combination analysis, I can see I've got my dead plus snow, but in some cases I've got my dead plus live and snow. In some cases, I may be able to reduce the factor used on the live load here. So with that, that's about all of the inputs for this calculator. If we look at the outputs now, you will see that we show you the positive moment demand, negative moment demand, the shear demand, and maximum bearing. Now do keep in mind, this is an analysis only calculator, so we don't actually do the design checks on this. You'll be able to do that in a separate calculator. But we also show you the deflections, and so these are calculated based on the actual cross-section that you've linked or that you're just choosing to design. You'll also see the reactions on the beam. You can also see our load combinations. And if we go to this tool here, we can select different load combinations. Let's say if I want to look at live and snow, I can see this, and there's still the envelope that'll show up to show the maximum. I can also see my free body diagram here. If I wanted more detailed information, I can also go on the left here, and you can see, say for unfactored load, so my dead and my live, you can see have their specific shear moment for only those loads. And then I can also see things for spans. So I've got my short, long-term deflection, my moment demands. I've also got my quarter moments in case I wanted to use this for a lateral torsional buckling analysis where I want my equivalent moment factor. And I can also look at loads per support. So seeing the reaction, the moment if it's a fixed connection, and the shear at the support. So that about concludes our video here. I hope this was helpful. As always, if you've got any questions, you can click on the blue help button at the bottom right. You'll see some little articles here to help you, as well as an option to email us. We're always happy to help as fast as we can. Thank you.